Hey folks, welcome back to another video. Thanks for putting up with the drone shots and things like that I do. Just try and make the videos interesting to me a little bit by making myself work a bit harder. It's stunning out there this evening as well. It's getting a bit dark now, but the sunset was awesome. I can kind of see a bit from my house, but you can tell from the drone shot that maybe you have to go a little bit higher before I get quite the view that you get out of that. But it's not bad at all. The mountains just were glowing kind of a pinky orange, which is amazing. It's definitely feeling a bit wintry, hence why I've got the fire going. It's pretty fresh out and about. I was at Traumatic today and it was roasting there, because it always is at Traumatic, isn't it? There's hardly any wind, it was bright sunshine, but yesterday at Milestone Buttress, bit of a breeze, bit of shady at times. It was pretty Baltic actually, loads of jackets, gloves on, woolly hats on. It's definitely that time of year. For me, when it gets to this time of year, I'm always thinking about going to Spain for the winter, as I always do, and doing loads of climbing, completely selfishly, no work, just climbing for fun. And a lot of Brits do that, don't they? I go for 3 months. Not everyone's lucky enough to be able to go for 3 months, but yeah, a lot of people do have winter trips, and maybe that'll change because of COVID, who knows. But even in the UK, it kind of, for me, it almost becomes like a sports season is pretty good actually, because it's a bit colder. Multi-pitch tradding, sort of at your limit, becomes a bit harder to do when you need to be wrapped up and trying to stay warm. Sport climbing in the UK and abroad as well, if it's cold, it's okay because you can wrap up in your big fat down jackets, all that kind of thing. You try and do your picture climbing, hopefully you tick the route. If you don't, you'd sort of lower back down, put your big jacket on, have a coffee, all that kind of thing. It's just much easier to stay warm and have fun. So I thought I'd do a video on how to climb 7A. I've done blogs about it before, and I know I've done like training videos and stuff before, but this isn't really that kind of video. It's a question I get asked a lot, just when I'm out and about on all sorts of courses. How did I get to climb 7A? How did I get to sort of move from there to climb 8A? And hopefully one day I'll be able to answer the question, how did I get from 8A to like 8B? Because that's kind of the next goal for me, is to get to that kind of grade. But that video I'll have to wait maybe till next year. But you never know, watch this space. But it's a good question. And really, at 7A, I think it's a tough grade. 7A, which is, if anyone's watching in America, because I get loads of people watching in the States, which blows my mind. That's 511D. There might be nuances to that, but it's roughly that. But yeah, 7A climbing, it is quite tricky. You have to try hard. You need good technique, and you need some strength and stuff as well. I will chat a little bit about training, but not massively so. There's other videos for that kind of thing. But I think, right, that anybody who wants to climb 7A can climb 7A. I know fat people have climbed 7A, thin people, tall people, short people, really flexible people, people like me who aren't flexible at all. And it nearly always boils down to one thing, which is climbing a lot. And by getting out climbing a lot, it does a few things, but mostly your technique gets dialed. Just time on the rock is like the best thing you can do to improve your technique. Secondly, that time on the rock, it builds your endurance and stuff like that, so actually you get pretty climbing fit, and you kind of get a lot of confidence from it as well, don't you? You're able to read routes, you kind of learn what you can hold on to, what you can't hold on to, and just, it's all like fact finding. And if you are trying hard, at some point you'll fall off. And there's a lot to be said for falling off, right? There's a time and a place for it, firstly. There's times in climbing, particularly on trad climbing, where it's just not a sensible thing to do, falling off, right? Whether that's because the gear's rubbish or whether it's because there's ledges to hit and stuff like that. As you progress through your sport climbing, especially the harder it gets, it tends to be less things to hit, so it is a safer affair, but obviously it's still not without its risk. I kind of thought about, I've made a few bullet points because I do kind of think a little bit about these videos rather than just sitting down and blurting on about it. Falling off practice. Falling off held me back a lot in the earlier stages of my climbing career. I was scared of falling off. Sometimes that's rational, like I say, and sometimes it's irrational. It's something that some people do need to overcome. Some people don't. Some people can, just inherently are okay with it. For me, it boils down to a few things. One, you need a belayer you can absolutely trust implicitly, and for me, that comes from a bit of time of climbing with people. And two, it's kind of practicing it, and just sort of little and often. We don't need to be doing massive whippers all the time or anything like that. But if you've never taken a fall, for example, maybe it's worth going to the climbing wall and just with a really trusted and good belayer, when you clip a quick draw at the wall and it's a nice steep route ideally, all that kind of thing, without going above it or anything, you can just build up to falling. So you can sort of clip in, shout take in, okay? That's the sort of very early stages, isn't it? Next time you can clip in with the rope and and just jump off without saying take. So you're on a top rope, but you'll fall a little bit, won't you? And you can just build up. You go level with the bolt, do the same thing. You go just beyond the bolt. You don't need to be doing like clip dropping is what we call it, where you get the rope out and you go to clip the next quick draw, but then you just jump off without clipping it, and then you end up with quite a big fall. If you want to do it, great, but you don't have to do anything dramatic, just little bits, little and often, and it will really improve your head. And if those of you that have done that kind of thing and have got to a good place, you'll know you just climb so much better because you climb more freely, you're less tensed up, you don't over grip quite so much, all these things. So it does pay dividends. It certainly paid dividends for me, and I don't have to do it very often now. And partly that comes from projecting routes, so I do fall off a lot anyway, but it's just become a bit more normal, and that's what we're doing. It's quite hard to overcome the fear of falling, and I'm sure even a lot of really good climbers actually never have fully overcome it. I haven't. I'm just able to manage it now, and that's the key. It's kind of making it a bit more normal and managing the fear side of things, right? It's worth thinking about, put it that way. I think like when people ask that question, often my question is, if they want to climb 7A, have they climbed 7A? And that's a question to you as well if you're watching this video wanting advice. Have you tried 7A? If you haven't, go and try it is the first thing, right? Get that trusted belayer, all that kind of thing. And we don't have to on-site stuff. Just, even if you dog your way up it, try it. Fact finding, you'll learn what 7A is about. Try different styles of 7As. Play to your strengths. If you're like a slab climbing master, go and try 7A on a slab. If you're like really good at slabs and terrible at overhangs, I wouldn't go on to a 7A overhanging route. It's going to make your life really hard. The other way, though, if you're good at the really steep stuff, play to your strengths. It's a time and a place for working on your weaknesses, but I think when you're sort of breaking into a grade, play to your strengths for sure. It's absolutely the way forwards. And think about if you can't do it, you might surprise yourself, you might get it really quickly. If you don't, think about why you didn't get it. Was it head game stuff, fear of falling, that side of things? Was it you weren't strong enough, you couldn't actually use the key hold that you need to use? Was it that you just ran out of energy, like endurance style? And think about why that didn't go down, all right? Because you might need to train. I'm a big believer that you don't need to train to get to 7A if you can climb a lot, like multiple times a week, whether that's at the wall, outside, ideally both probably. But if you climb a lot, you'll probably get there. Not everyone can climb a lot, get on the rock a lot. Some people will need to train to make the most of those days they can get on the rock. So it's worth thinking about, and thinking why you fail on routes at 7A, because that's the grade we're talking about, will lead into what you train, whether it is strength with stuff like max hangs, whether it is your power endurance, repeater sessions, pure endurance, doing 4x4s at the wall, that kind of thing. It's worth thinking about, but I wouldn't think that you have to train to climb 7A. What do you need to climb 7A? Well, you've got to try it, like I said. You'll need some strength, of course, because it's hard, but actually probably more importantly, or almost certainly more importantly, is you'll need some good technique, right? Whether that's the slab techniques or the steep techniques, whatever, ideally all of it is great, isn't it? But you will need good technique. So that's what comes from climbing on the rock a lot, and ideally climbing with loads of other people so you can watch them climb, or even if you're just at the wall sitting in the cafe, watch other people climb. It could be worth seeking out some coaching. When I was sort of climbing 7A fairly solidly, but wanting to sort of push on to 8A, I got some coaching, not loads, but just a little bit to plant a few seeds and get me thinking about certain things. You could find it really useful. A coach is able to look at you from completely outside of your little bubble, it's very hard to actually think about your strengths and weaknesses without having a clouded view of it. So that outside opinion could be worth its weight in gold, really. So do think about it. I'd also think about different styles in terms of, do you want to on-site 7A or do you want to red point 7A? Red pointing being sort of working a route. And now red pointing doesn't have to be like a multi-year siege of some route, like some superstar climbers trying that 9 whatever week in, week out for ages. It doesn't have to be that. It could just be in one day. You dog up it, you learn the moves, you try it the next go, you don't get it, then your third go you get it, great. Working routes though is a nice way of breaking into a grade, and once you've done a few of those routes, you've worked 7A a bit, maybe you're then starting to work a bit harder. It kind of drags your on-site grade up. So I would suggest just accepting red pointing as a valid way of climbing. I came from a trad climbing background where it was like on site or nothing kind of thing, whereas now I kind of enjoy the process of red pointing. I love it. I love the idea of when you first pull on to a route, it just feels utterly desperate when it's at your limit, and you slowly break it down and kind of bring it to your level and learn the moves and everything. And the process for me is awesome. I really enjoy it, and actually I probably get more out of a route if I've put loads of effort into working it than I do from an on-site. So that's going to be different for different people, but it's worth kind of thinking about it and thinking about the tactics for that, using clip sticks and things like that. It's an easier way of breaking into a grade, for sure it is. I guess the last one for me that I'll sort of mention, sort of reading through my list in front of me with my being a bit prepared for a change, I've put as the last one, sleeping and eating. Sleep well, rest well. It's really important. When I'm out in Spain for the winter, I tend to do 3 days climbing, then have a day off. You just can't climb day in, day out and be at your absolute best. Your body needs rest. Some people need more rest than others. I'm getting on a bit now. I'm like 39, and I do need my rest, and I need my 8 hours of sleep. Otherwise I just don't perform so well. And hand in hand with that goes eating well. It's one, getting enough calories, having enough fuel. But keeping it relatively healthy might be a good idea. I'm not meaning everyone needs to go on like a super diet or any nonsense like that, or eat massively healthily, just everything in moderation, but give it some thought. I know people that climb 7A who virtually live on McDonald's, not mentioning any names, but he'll know who he is. The better kept our body is, the more it's going to perform for us, really. So that, I think it's super important. So sleep well, eat well, and think about it throughout the day as well. It's easy to have a big lunch, for example, and feel really sleepy after lunch, isn't it? So I've got my Huel t-shirt on. I love the Huel stuff, so I sort of have half of that at some point in the day, half a bit later, so it spreads out the fuel, and my body doesn't go through sort of peaks and troughs quite so much, so I don't get that lethargy after lunch, right? That led on to one more thing I wanted to mention, which it is on the list, I just missed it. When you go in climbing, warm up properly, right? Get a TheraBand, get a squeezy ball, do some traversing, whatever it is, but get properly recruited. You can't climb hard straight out the box. Your muscles just aren't ready to perform. So it's really important, performance preparation, that kind of thing. And you do that before you climb, and then maybe you do an easy climb. Then maybe you get on this 7A project that you're on. And then if you have a rest after it, because you do need rest after that attempt, you're going to need a little while to get back to zero and ready to go again. But actually we don't want to get back to zero. We need to keep some recruitment in our arms, talk about arms because that's where we're pulling especially, but all your body. So you might have to sort of warm up again, and it might not be as big as the first warm up of the morning or whatever time you're turning up to climb it, but just getting a TheraBand out again. I take a fingerboard to the crag as well, because some crags don't have suitable things to sort of pull up on and do stuff on, but some crags do. To give you an idea, I guess it's 8A for me, which is kind of sort of my limit maybe. Then I'm probably doing 3 or 4 attempts on that route per day. So you don't get loads of climbing done. You can't, because if you're at your limit, whatever that limit is, just get boxed, right? So you've only got a limited amount of energy to put out. But there you go. I think I've covered everything I want to cover looking through my list there. Try 7A, see what happens. That's the first thing. Then go climbing loads, work out what you need to do if you do need to train anything to maximise your opportunities on the rock. All what I've said, warm up and recruit, work on the fear factor, work routes, train if you need to, play to your strengths, eat and sleep well, all that kind of stuff. And like I said, anybody can climb 7A, but you've got to want it. You have got to want it, right? A lot of people who will say, I want to climb 7A, they're not willing to put the effort in. And that's fine. There's loads of routes less than 7A to go and climb forever and ever, isn't it? And all climbing is good climbing. If you do specifically want to do that, put some effort into it. And there's absolutely no reason why you can't climb 7A. If I can climb 7A, then literally anyone. I'm like just weak by nature, right? So absolutely you can climb 7A if you really want to. Please fire away with any questions. As always, I'm absolutely happy to answer as best I can any time at all. What time is it? It's 7:30. I'm sat by the fire. I've got those targets to hit this winter, so as much as I'd like to sit by this fire for the rest of the evening and watch Edward Scissorhands was on TV before, don't really like that film though, to be honest. I'm actually going to go into my attic, which is a lot colder than sat here, and I'm going to train. I think tonight is repeaters, and then I'll do a bit of an ab workout, like core workout as well. So got to put the time in if you want to hit these things. For sure you have. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, massively appreciated. The channel is doing just mind-blowingly well. Honestly, it surprises me every time I see the subscribers count creeping up. So thanks very much for watching. More videos coming up very soon.